Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to blow your mind. Cue the intro.
Knock this out, prophetic.
That's how you do that, right?
Like
Yeah, before we get started, go ahead and click like and subscribe and share with all of your friends.
Let's talk
If
about
you
a
want
cool
to be, if you
phenomenon.
want to be put on a list, share this video. What were you saying?
Put on the list. We should talk about a cool phenomenon
What's that?
about, well, actually, you know what we haven't done yet on a podcast is talk about the wedding.
that's
and
right.
experience in Minnesota.
That's right.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Dude,
Good
okay.
times were had. Go
Yeah.
for it.
So Asif, you got to MC the wedding.
What an honor.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Let me ask, did you do any prep beforehand?
Like I printed off the script and went to the wedding.
Yeah. It was cool because watching you up there, you handled yourself like you do a masterful job of I guess just speaking and keeping the crowd engaged and things like that. And I know some of the people that were working there, like that were handling the microphones and things like that, they were like, who is this guy? This guy knows what he's doing. Like I think one of the ladies who was like in charge of videography or something like that, she's like, this guy's good.
That's cool.
Yeah, because obviously you're great, but what I wanted to say within all that was, the wedding that was put on was like not the traditional type of wedding that I think most people expect. Right?
Yeah, it was funny because I was talking to Mitch and Jess beforehand. I'm like, okay, it's because they had a script, and the script was specifically for as their parents and grandparents walked down, they wanted me to just give a little bit of history. But other than that, it was like they just said, hey, like you're gonna intro and then introduce, like this is what we just want you to say, the history about this person, this person, this person. So obviously I don't know those facts, right? Like the dates and the the little stories that they were telling. And then they said, and then you can tell a story here and then pass it to Drake, for example. And it was really cool listening to you speak and talking a little bit about, the point of how you've watched their relationship grow, but specifically about what they're standing for and how it supported you and Christine. And I talked about how it supported me, Mela, and stuff like that. But yeah, like the first point was, did Jessica look stressed at all?
Oh, she looked
No.
great.
Not at all. Mitchell, neither.
Yeah.
It was
Snyder.
Mitchell Snyder
Mitchell
did
Snyder.
not also.
Mitchell Snyder.
That's
Mitchell
what-
did not. Did Snyder look stressed?
Neither did Mitchell Snyder. Which is really cool because at the very beginning, I think the thing that the most common feedback that I got was at the beginning when there was like audio issues. People were like, "Oh my God, you handle that so well." It's like,
Oh yeah, like when you start throwing a tantrum.
He got on the floor and did the full on like fist hitting the ground.
guys,
kicking
this
your
is all
legs.
this is
You're
all
like-
fake news. No, all the people listening to the podcast who weren't there don't actually know what happened, and now they think I threw a tantrum, and I'm not
No,
gonna.
it was actually really cool because there was like obviously these technical difficulties. They were trying to get the mics, the amps to work or whatever, and Asif was just like keeping it going, like crowd control, crowd management. I don't know how you say it.
Somebody
It was
said,
pretty
it looked like they intentionally had microphone issues just to let you do your thing.
Yeah,
But so it was, I think the coolest part was one of the principles are visibly living the principles, right? And not having that fear of, okay, I have all my, as sometimes at the beginning, at least at the beginning. Now I'm integrated, but at the beginning with the gin and the beginning of Technotutor, all that, you feel like you're living a double life. So I have my real relationships here, and then I go with my family or with my whoever, and it's like you're fake. You're trying to fit into their bullshit, right? But it's cool because what Mitch and Jess did is they took everybody, brought them together, and it's like, here's what we're actually about. And they had no fear and just talking about, man, when Jess and Mitch were talking, holy shit. Like those are two people who are preparing themselves for the world stage, right? And Jess didn't even know that they're gonna, quote unquote, say their vows until right before, when she was going over the script with the person who was coordinating it, even though she kind of made it. But
they were like, oh, you got to do your vows here at this point. So she was
exactly.
like, oh, okay.
So basically she was like, let's just speak. Let's just talk a little bit about the agreements we made and just go. And they were just looking at each other, going ham. I'm like, I commit to like making sure that I become the best version of myself to support you to grow and take care of the children, this and that and the other. And they're going ham, and it was just real.
Yeah.
That's the singular point. It was real.
It was real. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was cool because for those people who were there as part of like their friends from Technotutor, Self-Perfected, that kind of stuff, it was like good for everyone to see like, hey, Jess and Mitch are willing to stand in front of everybody. And it was like an example where people are actively using an opportunity to talk about that and like explain it and share that stuff, in a place where you normally wouldn't. And for everybody else, obviously, who wasn't already a part of it, for them to see like, oh, they're going to just talk about that stuff. Like they're not going to change and compromise and just do the normal wedding thing for everybody else. Like, you know what I mean? Like they didn't do the normal traditional vows or any of that stuff. Like they spoke from themselves and their principles, and they talked about their agreement and like how that started. They kind of gave some history of it and everything.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to see that as a way of showing like, hey, you can do something that's normal, have a wedding, but also within it, create your own way of doing it based on your principles and so forth, and not have to just go along with the, because think about it, where do most people when they get married, they just follow the script. Who wrote that script?
Right.
Like I've been to a few weddings, but like, no, the normal wedding script.
The average wedding, like,
this like, do you take so-and-so? And it's like, who fucking wrote that? And why is everyone just blindly, it's more like, it's just like anything else, dude. I have kids now. I have to educate them. All right, put them in school. I need to make money. Go get a job. I'm bored. Okay, go to the movie theater. It's like you just all these things. The system's like, oh, I got an answer for that. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go.
Yeah.
Like nobody is actually looking at it from within themselves of like, what do I stand for, and how can I make this a reflection of me and what I stand for? Right. So it was cool because they didn't like the only things that were traditional was they were standing in the front. There was chairs where everybody was sitting. There was the aisle, and her parents and grandparents walked down the aisle, and then they came down the aisle. But there was no da, 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 none of that bullshit. It was cool.
But they did have a fucking sick harpist.
They had like a live harpist, like in the background, like behind where the altar would normally be, like playing the fucking harp the whole time. I was like,
it was awesome.
It was really cool. And we were at the top of like the IDS tower in Minneapolis, which I think is like one of the tallest buildings, if not the tallest.
Yeah.
And you can see the whole city and everything. And it was pretty cool.
And as the night went on, like the sun was setting, and it was like really, really amazing.
Yeah. Really, and then we just had a party after. Okay.
Just based off what you were saying about how they did it different. And they didn't, bring God into the whole mix and, all that stuff. Mitchell said it really well. Me and Kian were,
even though some of their parents and family is like super religious.
Yeah.
Like super.
Right. Just want to like, but they weren't just, they were like, yeah, who cares what you think?
Exactly.
It's pretty cool.
And so after the wedding, me and Kian were just hanging out with Mitch and Jess. It was, after like the presidential, like we were all hanging out in the presidential suite doing dumb shit. And all that. I guess we'll end up talking about that a little bit.
Yeah, we'll talk about
that. After that, everybody left, and me and Kian just, I don't know, Kian was using the bathroom and I was doing whatever. We ended up chatting for a bit. Like a couple hours. That's how it goes. Couple hours, same thing. But one of the things that Mitchell said, I don't know if everybody's going to get this, but he said, we're deleting the marriage system, the wedding system. What he was talking about, he's like, what we just did for everybody there and maybe this was me explaining it, like, because we talked a little bit more about it. But what they did for everybody there was they showed, look, you don't have to do it that way.
Yeah.
You do not have to do it that way. You can do it how you want to do it, what's real. And the way Mitchell described it was like, we're deleting the marriage system or the wedding system or whatever.
I guess that's in a way like what Katie and I have done for the
camera.
Okay.
So Drake
Back?
just disappeared and came back. So let's just
probably it will be seamless. It'll just be like,
yeah,
back,
exactly.
right?
So you're saying that in
You're back, Drake?
2012,
yeah, when we got married, we just had a reception. Like we didn't even do the other standing in front of anybody. And then during the reception, Katie and I went up and I spoke and I don't even remember. I didn't plan it. I just was like, hey, I thanked everybody for coming. And no, I just said basically like, the reason we're getting married is that we have an agreement to support each other to be the best that we can possibly be. We both want to make a difference in this world. We want to create a system that's best for everybody. And I was explaining how I really appreciate Katie because she always pushes me and supports me to change. And I've become a very different person from when I met her until that point. And that was a long time ago. And that's pretty much what I said. Like that was what, and so I was just giving that context, but we didn't really do anything else. When we got married, we just went to the courthouse and did all that stuff.
Right.
And then the next day we went and did the reception and that was pretty much it, So, but yeah, what else?
So the point there is like what Mitch and Jess did, for those of you who don't know, they held it.
But they had an actual wedding. You know what I mean? Like what we did was just like, they did the actual real wedding, but tweaked every part to suit what they wanted to actually do. Right.
Right. And so they had everybody dressed to the dimes. Like everybody was looking beautiful. They had, again, a harpist. Like just think about the context that you would get a harpist for. Like that's the level of shit that we're talking about here. And the point is, it's really indicative of where we're at, where symbolically, like what I see it as is principles coming to life, right? And principles took the religious route because people were just too stupid and they had to be controlled. So religion was a big part. And I'm not talking about weddings right now. I'm just talking about time, like history. I took the religious route, didn't go very well, but then eventually the transition point was destiny. Destiny was compiling all of that data, all of what works and what doesn't work into a singular group called destiny. But there was still changes that need to be happened because you don't want to just only create your own system that's separate from everything else and remove you from society. That was a necessary component for the people who were there, the people who were on the farm, the people who needed to see clearly we have to change something. Clearly to the degree where they would actually take responsibility for it. And what self-perfected is, it's the final point. It's taking principles from religion that tried to control and all this bullshit, like really weird stuff, to destiny that was like, fuck all that culty weird shit. Like, let's just make it so you stand as an individual. But it was quote unquote very weird or on the quote unquote outskirts or fringe or whatever. But what self-perfected is the coming of principles into the system. And this wedding was a reflection of that. This wedding was, hey, look, this is a new way of doing weddings. Talk about real shit and have a fucking awesome time and do it over a 1, 2, 3, 4 day period. Right? It was like a 4 day event, basically, from when we had the rehearsal dinner right up to when we were at Mitch and Jess's place and we were having the afternoon, evening barbecue and all that stuff. Right. So it was really cool watching everybody super dressed up, people from all different walks of life, all gathered to celebrate one thing, which was the principle of making love real. And there was another really cool event that happened there. And it was something that was expected / unexpected.
Wait. Before you go into that.
Are you trying to bridge from one conversation to the next?
Before you do that, because there's something else that I wanted to say about the wedding, because you'd brought up this point of how they were bringing together people from like, you know, their family, and then like people from like their friends.
Someone say different walks of life.
Yeah, different walks of life. Yeah.
I was like, there's a homeless guy. There's a there's like a meth dealer in the back. There's like a gangster.
Gold tooth and cane. Yeah.
But
there's a prostitute. There's
like that little kid selling newspapers on the corner, like, "Hey, governor," you know,
extra.
Yeah.
The like, but when they were speaking, and when you were speaking, I was noticing that the way that you were speaking was basically like speaking to the point of principle, essentially. Like you weren't tailoring what you were saying to accommodate others. And I just wanted to make this point because you were talking about how destiny has like brought together all these principles, all the things that actually make sense, but it seems weird, or, you know, for some people it seems weird because it's outside of their expectation. Right. And I was noticing that point of, you know, the what is expected is for you to talk to the average person, the normal person, what's within their realm of what they can perceive. Right. But you didn't do that. And neither did Mitch and Jess. And so it really set the stage for like, we're actually doing something of value. You can either hop on board or we don't have to talk to you. Right.
Yeah. We should do like a whole seminar on like communication secrets they don't want you to know about. And like, basically the whole thing is like, just fucking ignore your audience. Don't worry about their vocabulary level. Don't consider what they want or anything. Just say what the fuck you want and tell them to fuck off if they don't understand you.
That's right.
At the very beginning, I preface it by saying this might look very different than what you're used to.
Yeah.
And it might sound very different than you used to. And it was cool.
But at the same time, like it was the structure of it was the same.
It was perfect. It was just
we're not gonna just say the script, which is all a bunch of bullshit. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so
just like in a relationship, like you're still gonna have the same structure. You know what I mean? You're gonna have dinner together, you're gonna have sex, you're gonna watch movies together, you're gonna do all that same stuff, go on walks, have kids, you know, have your bills, pay your stuff, you know, you're gonna do all the same things, but you don't have to within that have the same fucking conversation, the same patterns that everyone has. Because like the pattern is like, okay, when that person does something that I don't like, I need to like get annoyed or act depressed or get their attention or whatever it is. You don't have to do that stuff.
Right.
So the structure will be the same, but within the principles, you don't have to run that same script.
And so you can the point I wanted to clarify really quick was like religion was like the attempt of principles in the system, but it was just the wrong starting point of control. And
well, religion wasn't principles. Why do you say
they tried to sprinkle it in there?
No.
Well, I guess religion wasn't religion in and of itself.
Well, like think about it. Did Jesus start a religion?
No,
exactly.
But a religion.
Did Buddha start a religion? The religion was the attempt to take some of that stuff and manipulate it to get control.
And it did disseminate a lot of the information pretty effectively.
It did disseminate a lot of information.
Disseminate. And then you had destiny that was the principles, but it outside of the system.
Yeah.
Versus self-perfected is principles inside of the system. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could put it into a category, that's how I'd classify it.
You're just talking about the point of like, why does destiny seem like a cult?
Not the cult point.
No.
It's just
it wasn't outside of the system. It's just that people in the beginning were at such a low point. They were already rejected. No, they were already rejected by the system. Yeah. That was people who could listen, like myself included. Like I rejected the system. I mean, to a certain degree, not completely, but you know, I was at an elite university. I had lots of things like that, but I was just like myself, I don't really fit into this.
Look, so that's what I'm talking about. It's like destiny as a symbol was for the people who are like, dude, fuck the system. Mm-hmm. From the perspective of
totally. And we're like total losers in the system, but we're like questioning, like exactly, we're open and teachable to like, okay, how do I just reject all of that and then rebuild myself looking at what makes sense. Right. Because if you
and that was
just
absolutely
reject
necessary.
everything, you're fucked if you don't actually rebuild anything. So it's like with Jess and Mitch, they're like, look, guys, you can still have a wedding.
So, and self-perfected
but rebuild
is
it in a way that
that
makes sense.
point that it's like the final, it's like Charizard. It's like Charizard, dude. It's like
What
the
is that?
final evolution of what needed to happen in terms
Oh,
of
I
what,
see. Yeah.
you know, the starting point of to change the system is you got to go into the belly of the beast, right? So that's what I think that, like, when I was looking at the wedding point is like, that's what I see it as. Self-perfected, the wedding,
Yeah.
what we're here to do, throwing events. Think about that, right? Throwing events. We're going to be throwing some really fucking cool events. And it's like, it's going into the system and using, like you said, the structure of the system and doing it from a different starting point.
Yeah.
Drake, so yeah, let's go back to what you were talking about in terms of, what's the last thing you were saying?
No, just basically that, like how we were talking.
Oh yeah, not catering to the, yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
exactly. Not like, because it's so easy. That's the other point. You know, they say like, well, we're always saying the system is within each and every one of us, right? I forgot who I was listening to, but they were saying, oh, I was listening to Owen Benjamin, and he was talking about how he was having a conversation where he realized that they is within all of us. Like when they say, you know, they are trying to keep us down, they are like, he realized like that's within all of us. We all have the capacity to be they, right? When you're cynical, when you're like, you don't see how this could change and you don't want to be a part of the change or anything like that, you're the system, you're, you know, and we talk about this all the time. We say it in the way of like, you're a system agent, right? But the point that I was making with this specifically is it's very comfortable or very easy to go back into like, fuck, you know, here's all these people, they're going to think I'm weird. Let me just, you know, say what they want to hear. But it was cool to see in that setting where it's like, there's so much expectation and there's so many people who are like wanting for you to just cater to them, and still standing strong in that point of just like, or stable in that point of like, here's what we're here to do, you know? Yeah. And that's the point that I wanted to make.
It's the whole reason they had the wedding was to bring everybody together, to expose people to that and show them like, hey, I'm willing to stand in front of everybody and talk about these points. And, you know,
so it's really cool when Drake, when you were speaking, so Drake was the only other speaker other than Jess and Mitch. So it was really cool when you were hitting on the point of showing everybody, look, Mitch and Jess, what they're here to do is no joke. Like, because of the group that Mitchell was, if it wasn't for Mitchell, it wouldn't have happened kind of point. Like, yeah, it was a group of people who came together to create Self-Perfected, but Mitchell had that kind of like online know-how and all that stuff, right? Yeah. And so, and you're just talking about, because of what Mitchell and Jess stood for, that brought me and my partner together.
Yeah.
I think that was really important for people to hear, because even like, you know, they see your son, oh, my son's doing that thing and blah, blah, blah. But when they hear from another person of, yeah, no, your son is like, was really important to my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really powerful.
Another funny thing about that, some family member of, I'm guessing Mitchell, came over and it's just like, wait a minute. I thought Mitchell was doing like an education thing, and now he's doing a relationship thing. Like, can you help me out with this? And I was like, he's like, is this something new? I'm like, no, it's all one and the same. Like the education to get the life that you want. It includes relationships. It includes your kids. It includes like finance. It's like, it's the education for the life that, what do you think education is? You know, and it's funny. He was an older guy, so he was just like, okay, yeah, that's great. I'm glad. But like, people can't like make that connection of like, what's the purpose of education really? If it's not to like live the life that you want, to be really effective.
That's why they think it starts when you go to school.
Right. Exactly.
Spells.
That's the so it was I'm glad I did not know that, but that's what I was thinking of.
Oh, hey, I thought of a really cool statement. Life starts at conception. So does education. Bam.
Ooh, that's good.
That's pretty good. I like it. When did you think of that?
Just now.
Is it when you thought of the we should do accents for psychologists right before you went to bed? I'll talk about that in a minute. But that point was really cool because as I was, sitting in the crowd for the moments that I was sitting, I was like, people are probably thinking I thought Mitchell was just doing this educational thing. What is everything?
Like, what's he talking about? Like, what is all this? Yeah.
Like, what is he into now? It's the same.
But that's why you have to have these events, because how are you going to go and sit and explain to every single person? That's why I like the self-prophetic clubhouses, because you can't get every single person to understand. You have to have a systematic way of getting people to expose to it and then intermingling with each other.
Yeah. So the other really cool part of that was, so we had a lot of fun. We'll talk about that. Like every fucking night, just staying up way too late and playing way too many games.
Because we talked about like Orlando when we went to that event, right? So, and
that was like a taste. Point. That was like a little.
Well, it was our first, I think,
appetizer.
It was our first event where we had a lot of people.
Yeah.
From self-perfected, techno-tutor, etc., like all in one place. Because obviously the last time we had an event was January 2020.
Right.
That
so
was Mexico.
Before self-perfected even was made.
And like really think about it. Like this is a good example. Look at the difference between being in Mexico, because y'all were both there.
Yeah. Versus
being in Orlando and then at Mitch and Jess's wedding and so forth. Like just in terms of the group dynamic for us, like not like, obviously that was a gin event, right?
So the thing that really stuck out to me the most was just like the community that we have now, that we've like built, that we've all been a part of it and growing, has gotten to the point of like, holy shit, this is like what I imagined. When I was a kid, and I would imagine like, wouldn't life be better? Like people actually cared, but no, people can't care. Like I can't make those other people change. Like, but what I would like be kind of trying to imagine was this community that we have now, where it's like, we have a lot of fun together, but we're also really focused on actually improving the world. Like we act like that's something that's in our conversations. It's not just like, again, when you're a kid, you're like, we could do things. And then as you get older and you're like around a bunch of adults who are really cynical, they're part of the system. It's just like, we don't talk about that. Like that's just the way things are. Those things aren't going to change. Like, and that becomes the norm for most people. But our group is like the group that's still like excited about, hey, we can change things. We have a responsibility to change things. And then we're actually changing things for ourselves. And so the conversations that we're having is not just about our purpose in the world, but like that's like an underlying driver for the conversation. But within that, we're talking about what's going on in your life, what's going on in my life, and like actually caring about how we're building ourselves and growing the people around us and bringing that together. And like, it's cool because we're able to challenge each other in a way that's like really supportive for one another and be there for one another. And on top of that, we have a lot of fun throughout it. And there's no like, it's not like going to like some weird church event where like, oh, we all have to like, I read the Bible and I go by the laws and the rules and all, like everyone's like pretending in that environment. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're here, we're coming together like really genuinely and just like, hey, what's going on? Well, why are you stuck here? And then like having a conversation about that and like, okay, cool. Well, have you considered this? Like, oh, did you see the way that like you're explaining that? Like, is this your perspective on it? Like, can you see how that's limiting you? Like, oh, okay, well, and then that other person being like, oh, light bulb moment. Great. I can change that. I can do something about that. And then going from that to like, just like rolling on the ground, like playing around and like playing our games, having fun. And
when were you rolling on the ground?
with Max outside.
Okay.
But
Yeah, for sure. Uh-huh.
but I mean, like, what I mean to say with all that is I had a few moments where I looked around at the people around me and I realized, like, wow, I am actually a part of something that I really enjoy. I'm like, I love the people that I'm around. Like, I genuinely care for these people and care that they're here. And I'm glad that I'm a part of this. And I want to see them succeed. And I know that they want to see me succeed. And there's nothing superficial about it, or that I'm like hyping myself up for, or like being intentional and like, I need to be present here and appreciate these people. It was just like a natural unfolding of like, holy fuck, I'm so glad to be here. I'm like, oh, okay. Here's part of the reason why this is so significant to me. Because for one, I know you were leading into this and I cut you off, but Christine and I got engaged after the wedding.
Oh,
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Were you not there?
That's right. Oh, is that what you guys were talking about?
I just want to be one of the first people to say congratulations.
I just want to say, oh, God damn it,
No, thank you guys. But in planning, or not really planning that, like Christine was just like, hey, I want to be surprised. Like we ordered the ring together and everything. And so she knew it was coming. Right. But I was like,
didn't know when.
Well, when it arrived in the mail, I was like, so are we engaged now? Like, how does this work? She's like, no, I want to be surprised. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. I'm going to have to figure some shit out. So, but when we were all together, I was like, man, this is perfect, because these are all the people that supported me and supported her and supported us to get into this relationship in the first place. These are all the people, unfortunately, Avery couldn't be there in person, but he called right away, right? But Avery and Cameron had a huge hand in helping me to walk through all my bullshit to get to the place where I could even like entertain the idea that I could be in a relationship.
Wait, I thought that you and Cameron and Miss Avery were in business together. Are you guys part of some other thing?
I thought we were just doing some education thing.
I thought you guys were just doing some educational child tool thing.
Yeah. They were educating me to like stop being a child and grow the fuck up and be a man. Right?
Isn't that cool though?
It is.
Like, what? You know, I was part of some like bullshit MLMs and stuff like that in the past. They don't give two fucking fucks about you.
No, they're like, go talk to all your friends list and just sell them on this bullshit that doesn't even matter, that I don't care about.
You're like, I'm going through some stuff in my life right now. They're like, okay, we'll find somebody else.
Oh, you're going through some stuff. Go see a counselor and then come back when you're ready to like make some sales or whatever. Like, but seriously, Cam and Avery supported me to like get to that point of I can entertain the idea of being in a relationship, and then understanding what a relationship even means, and then getting to the point of like, I need to go out and find a relationship that's real. And then, you know, you supported me with this, Asif, as well, and Kian and Mitch and Jess, and like pretty much everyone was there of, okay, you guys are the reason why this is even possible for me.
And then on the flip side, Christine got a lot of support, because when she came in, she's going through all kinds of relationship stuff and blah, 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 blah. No, I'm joking. Like, it is important, you know, like, right? But she kept running into the same issue within herself. So on the flip side, because she was part of the group, and when I say part of the group, I mean specifically, she was a distributor. So I knew she had the same purpose that I did. Kian knew she had the same purpose that he did. So we can support her very specifically, which is why you guys ended up together. You guys both had the same starting point and purpose. And one thing I just want to say before, because I want you to keep going with this, going back to Avery and Cameron supporting us in the context of relationships and personal stuff and all that, it's still very clear. It's in the context of building a business. The point I want to make here is in order to build an effective business, you got to be in a relationship. That's why they were doing it.
Yeah.
And dude, like your stability is like ever since you got into a relationship with Christine, it's just like, right. So even if it took time, right? If you just see it if you only see it from a business perspective, first of all, this is still the key point, right? Other people, if they're just doing it from a business perspective in other businesses, they can't support you with relationships because they have fucking shit relationships.
Yeah.
Versus we see Avery and his wife, and they had to go through a lot together, and man, are they still here and stronger than ever.
Yeah.
Right. Cameron and Katie, they had to go through a lot together, and man, are they still here stronger than ever. So they actually have the real experience of not just, oh, I found the girl of my dreams and everything's great and blah, blah, blah. Because if you don't have to go into the depths of your relationship, yeah, it'll be pretty easy if you just have to have the same sports teams or, like the same stuff. And, like, obviously that's not what people like get married over. But what I'm saying is if it's just superficial, yeah, your relationship's not going to be that difficult until you take on more responsibility. The cool part is when you start your relationship by, I'm here to take on more responsibility. And what we're going to do together is something that's going to require us to take on a lot of responsibility. You have to face a lot of shit really quickly.
Yeah.
So that's when the support of the group really comes into play. And it's fundamental into establishing yourself for man and woman financially, specifically financially. A really, really big point.
Plus, nobody else is actually even considering that. They're not even considering how your relationship is actually affecting your business or their business or whatever. Like,
exactly.
All they're thinking about is just whatever they're myopically focused on, meaning like whatever they can see within this small screen. They don't have all the context that we do, which is again because of our education, which is Tech Tutor, Destiny, and
so you can see all the parts of something and how they interrelate and affect one another.
Right. Oh, okay. I got to hit on another point about that a little bit later, but let me keep going with this one real quick. As far as like the relationship that I have now, I'm glad you brought up that point of like the principles and the purpose, because it is
we never talk about principles and purpose, man. It's really good. Wow.
Tell me more about these.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was talking to someone on the phone yesterday about this, of how like I have the relationship of my dreams. Like I'm literally getting married to the girl of my dreams, who we're aligned in principle and purpose. We have we agree on what we're doing, creating a world that's best for all. We're supporting each other to actually do that. That's part of like why we came together it is why we came together in the first place. Is like, when Christine arrived here for the very first time and we met in person, we just basically said like, hey, just to be really clear, the reason why we're doing this isn't because like you're cute or I'm cute or whatever. It's because,
even though you guys both are,
although we are cute as fuck.
Subjective.
But the reason why we're doing this is to see if we are supportive for one another in creating a world that's best for all. And so we're going to see how supportive we actually are. And if we are, then let's make some agreements and let's get going. Right. And she was like, yeah, I'm really clear on that. And so within that, it's been really cool because we are already agreed on how we're going to raise our children, how we're going to support each other, how we're going to challenge each other and not, allow one another to fuck off. Right. We're here for this purpose, which means that we can be a little bit more challenging to one another, more direct with one another without worrying about offending the other person, because it's like, hey, look, we agreed to this, right? And I'm just checking you to stay on task, on point, on message, on purpose, right? I love that phrase, on purpose.
On purpose, yeah.
Right?
No, it's cool because like week one of your relationship, you guys were pushing each other. You know what I mean? Like it was like, okay, like, hey, here's our role. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Rather than getting to know it, that's obviously an integral part, but it's like, that's in between what do we focus on? What are we moving towards?
That
you
is
know?
getting to know each other.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's the
It's
It's
real
like,
really
let's
is.
actually face who we really are.
Yeah.
Let's
And
go.
how we
like,
work together.
yeah.
It's like what's actually important. It's like kind of like when you go into
Yeah.
what?
Well, to say versus what people normally use relationships for, which is let's take advantage of all this new fresh energy while we can.
Right.
And then later on you get to face each other and then you're like, okay. And then you settle in. And it's like, no, that's just an abusive way to form relationships.
You know, when you join a team,
That's well described.
or like when you're like you start a new job or whatever, like you're in a business, like you work with other people, and through working with those other people, you
Right.
get to know them.
Right.
You know,
Right.
You already have a structure in place. And so it's like, hey, we have to get these things done. That's what we've created for ourselves. It's like, look, we have this structure. We have a task that we are doing together. Like we have a purpose. This is what we're working on. This is the goal for our team. And then through that, we've gotten to really know each other and see like, okay, here's where you're really strong. Like you fucking got that. Like, here's where I'm weak, you know, and like really helping each other, supporting each other to grow within that, you know, and it's been amazing. Like that. I mean, in summary, it's been amazing to really grow together and face those challenges and overcome them. And I love it. I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm excited for everything that we're doing. And again, part of what I see within this last trip that we had together, like I was just feeling this immense appreciation for all of you guys, because I see what we're building. Like this is the community of like, wow, this community actually supported me to get the life to start really living the life that, you know, I wanted, but I didn't see how I could do it. And nobody else was supporting me within that at all. And we're growing and we're supporting others. And it's not just me. And I saw, you know, so many other relationships that are as strong because of this group. And it was just like, it's such a fucking beautiful thing. This is what we're exporting to the world. It's not just, again, education. When I first got into Technotutor, when I first got Technotutor for myself, even when I first became a distributor, like I was still looking at it like that old man of like, I thought we were just doing an education thing for kids, even though I had like, you know, I'd had the experience myself of, you know, changing quite a bit and seeing like, oh, I feel better. I like myself more. I know that there are things within myself that I'm clarifying, and I'm more clear on who I am. But even still, I wasn't completely clear on why this is important for the world until like just seeing like, holy fuck, this is what the world needs. Like people need community, they need family, they need education, they need purpose, they need like this sense of, hey, we're all in this together. And it's the exact opposite of what the system and what the world is giving right now. Right now, the world is just giving like this, like, no, separate from everyone. Everyone's your enemy. Fuck that guy because he doesn't think like you. And you are never going to be on the same page. We just have to control everybody, shut it down. You do what I say. Like that's what we're getting as a society right now. And we're building the thing that actually everybody can agree on. The thing that everyone like would actually want for themselves and for others. And it's the world that people like imagine when they think of like, you know, if everything was best, if everything was perfect, if everything could be ideal, we're actually creating that. And I said this, you know, I think on one of our meetings, but like the starting point is the end point. I love the beauty of seeing how this works out because we're starting with, this is what we're creating. And so as we're creating it, it's growing and we can see it growing. It's like, oh, wow, this is actually it. Like we get to enjoy it as we're creating it. It's almost like I'm going to bake a sick ass cake or whatever and like tasting the dough along the way. And like, it's coming together. It's like, it's getting close. Like, wow, this is really good. You know what I mean? Like, but it's even better than that because it's like, it's real life. It actually pertains to like what we all want and who we are and developing ourselves and growing. And it's like, isn't this what life is about?
There's no story that you can tell that encapsulates like how profound it is what we're doing. And the really cool reflection of that is, like we were talking about, there are people who are obviously with techno tutor distributors, all of that, at the wedding, but then there were people who weren't distributors, who never met us in person, all that, and they're experiencing our group for the first time, and they're just blown away. They're like, holy fuck. In my entire life, my 33 years, my 31 years, my 25 years, I've never experienced a group like this before. How do I become part of it? That's that's really good feedback to get.
I want to add to that because like people might look at it and say like, well, okay, you guys just have a common purpose, so that's why you have a great time together. But but there's lots of people who are in groups where there's some kind of common purpose. Like you could have a sports team. Maybe you have like maybe you like to play church group, or like maybe you like to play Dungeons and Dragons together, or like there's people are in groups with a common purpose. Mm-hmm. But like it's not like we're naive. It's not like we've never been in groups before and we're like, oh my God, guys, when you're in a group, it's amazing like what you can experience. Like we've been in groups. Like that's not what we're saying. The difference here is not only do you have a common purpose, it's the highest possible purpose. And everyone is like, it's not just a limited purpose, like playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
Like, well, I'm here and I play Dungeons and Dragons and I just have fun and I like that. And I'm like, well, okay, but how are you connected to these people otherwise beyond that? It's just like a very limited self-interested point that has no effect on anything else in your life except just to entertain you. Same thing with, like maybe the guys you like to go out drinking with or watch, Monday Night Football with or something like that. It's so, or like, what's that, fantasy football or things like that. It's like, it's such a limited thing. And you can get some level of camaraderie there. But the difference here is the purpose that unites us. Also within that is challenge yourself, challenge your ego, remove the points that are not best. So your experience within this group is that you can connect with people in a way that you can't connect with people otherwise. Because in any other group, it's either explicit or implicit that you don't challenge other people, and they're not going to challenge themselves and they're not going to challenge you. Yeah. So what ends up happening is in any group is you have internal drama and it never gets directed, and it ends up pitting people against each other, and you have factions and you have alliances and you have all this internal drama where you like some people, you don't like certain people. And there's nothing really, I mean, the perfect example of that is like, those Real Housewives shows where it's like they all get together for brunch and then they're like talking shit about each other and they're throwing like champagne glasses at each other. It's like, that's what's really going on in every group at some level. Mm-hmm. So, it may not be as exaggerated, but that's really what it is. Oh, let me just finish this point. Like, okay. So when we're together and and the thing is, it's a relatively new phenomenon, even for us, simply because we had never until now really like had a group large enough, but with enough people who have supported themselves enough to really like play the game fully, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's like if you're playing a game with everybody and they're all brand new to it, you're not really getting into the groove yet. But if you're like, okay, we've all been playing this game for a while, let's play, you can do a lot more. And so that doesn't mean somebody can't just jump into what we're doing and have fun. It's just because we have enough people that have really been applying themselves and using business to challenge themselves and find those points of ego, remove it. It's not some kind of selfless thing where we're like, oh, would you like a drink of water? Let me get you a drink of water. Oh, thank you, sir. Like, it's not that kind of bullshit. It's just like, at a certain level, the people in the room are not trying to get something from you. They're there to give. And so like, I'll just give this point and then maybe we can go into some of this. Like,
And
when
I
we're
just
sitting
want to
there,
hit that just
yeah,
one minor point real
Sure.
quick was that's actually why you can come into the group and have fun off the bat and push yourself off the bat is because we have
Yeah.
enough people standing for, hey,
Right.
like,
but you
tell
see
me
what I
about
mean?
you.
How the purpose that unites us within it is implied. You have to become a better person fundamentally.
Yeah.
So we can have a mastermind, if you want to call it that. I think that's a good word for it, at a level no one's ever experienced before, because it's a real genuine mastermind. Because if you study Mastermind from Napoleon Hill, one of the things he says, and I don't remember the exact phrasing of, maybe one of you do, but it's like, when you come together in a spirit of like harmony and cooperation with a common purpose or something like that, something to that effect, right? That's what we're doing to the ultimate possible degree. You see what I mean? It's like if somebody said, if you really want to have fun, you have to, or if you want to enjoy this meal, you have to have really good ingredients. So someone's like, oh, okay, good ingredients. Okay, so I won't use these shitty ingredients. I'll use some pretty decent ingredients. Yeah, but haven't you still limited it? Like, what if you use the best possible ingredients? If you use the best possible ingredients, the cake, the thing you're making, whatever, will be amazing.
Yeah.
And so it's like people are like, well, I want to experience bliss. Like, okay, well, what's your bliss? I want to, open up a little bakery and just do that. And it's like, okay, I mean, I'm not saying that can't be a part of it, but in itself, that's never going to bring you bliss.
Here's I want to make this explicit because like, I know we all know it, but also within everything that we're doing is the principle of doing what's best for all. And so that then means we're not creating division. I know you hit on this point, but like within those other groups, like, you're in Dungeons and Dragons group or whatever, like, okay, but that's just like that one little small thing. And you still are divided from everyone who's not doing Dungeons and Dragons, right? We're doing this with the starting point of creating a world that's best for all. And so that also includes you fucking assholes out there who they're like, oh no, I'll let you guys do it. And I won't, right? But it's not necessarily for that specific person. It's like, we're going to do this regardless of whether you do it or not. And your future generations will benefit from it. Yeah.
It's like imagine that our thing was we all bonded over Settlers of Catan,
which they were playing.
And so here's my point.
I don't think there would be a bond there.
but here's my point. It's like, that's one part of what we're doing. We play a board game.
Yeah.
It's not the singular point of connection that we have with one another, that we're on a soccer team together, that we went to the same school. The cool part is when you're united at such a fundamental level, you can connect over fucking everything. And guess what? For the people who didn't want to play Catan, we played some other fucking game. Like, who cares? Right? The starting point of it is supposed to be to have fun. So just have fun however you want.
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of that minor point, if you're saying, oh, you can't be part of our club because you don't love chess the same way we do.
Right.
You don't, it's like, it doesn't make any sense. Versus we have such variety because of it.
Another thing that I've been trying to get across for a while, but now it's like a lot easier for those who are experiencing it, is when I've always said, like, all the things that you want, within reason, meaning as long as they're not abusive, right? But all the things that you want, you can have all of those. Like you get young guys who are like, oh, I want to have Ferraris and, have a hot girlfriend and like all these things. Like, you can have all of that if you do what's best. If you build a business, if you challenge yourself, change yourself, and push yourself at all those points. Like, it's not like it's a sacrifice. You know what I mean? And it's not like, okay, well, if you're going to stand up and do what's best for all, you can't have any friends. You have to hate everybody. You can't have any relationships. You can't have any fun. Like, no. And now everyone is seeing it's just the power of the group. If you try to do it all on your own, yeah, I mean, you're fucked. But if you just do it with other people and you have a group and you're united in purpose, like there is people from all different walks of life at our group. You know what I mean? Like different backgrounds, like totally different people who you would probably never be friends with in the normal world just by chance, because they would never be in your friend circle.
Yeah.
But that is actually really cool because You want to talk about diversity? We actually have real diversity, different kinds of people, but we agree in our common purpose. It's interesting because you see like this argument of like, well, diversity, isn't just black, white, blah, blah, blah. Diversity is like differences in viewpoints. And it's like, well, hold on. Is that true? Like, think about the conservatives who say like, we need to have diversity of thought. Like, so do you really want people to be super fucking hardcore leftist, liberal, progressives? No. You don't want that. Like, it's bullshit. Like, it's not genuine. Like, so you're okay with the guy who's like, I want to do trans story hour for the kids. You're okay with that diversity of opinion? Well, no, as long as they don't do anything with it. And then what's the fucking value of opinion if you can't do anything with it? So it's not true. So real actual diversity is black people, white people, men, women, physical difference, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Why do we need to have a diversity of opinion? And what we're showing people is when you all agree on a common purpose, you have a lot more fun. You can still retain a different personality. You can retain a different way of moving and talking and so forth. But your starting point is what has to be agreed upon, right? It's just like, I value diversity of opinion. Okay, so you're playing a basketball game, and it's okay if this guy's opinion is, I shoot the ball in the other net. Like, no, you can't do that, buddy. Like, that's not what there has to be an agreement about something.
Yeah.
So if the basic agreement is we always want to do what is best for everybody, I mean, how can you disagree with that?
Right.
The only way you can disagree is if you don't think it's possible. But even if you think it's not possible, why wouldn't you still try to do it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, well, I don't think it's possible to do what's best for all because that would just make the world terrible. So I want to do not what's best for all because that would make the world better. Oh, wait. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make logical sense.
I want to guarantee it's terrible.
Here's what I think they're actually thinking. I don't think the world it can be best for all. It's impossible. So I don't want to waste my time doing something that.
Why?
Right.
Because then I won't feel good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
So
that's still you trying to impose what's best.
Mm-hmm. Say it again.
It's still you trying to impose what you think is best.
Best for
okay,
yourself.
like for example, if we try to create a world that's best for all, that's not going to work out. It's going to waste my time, right? So I don't want to do that because I want to do certain things in my life, right? So would you agree that's best?
Drake, this is the point.
You're still trying to impose what's best. You see what I mean by that? You just have a difference in opinion about what's best because you don't know how to get what you want within that.
Yeah.
But what the person doesn't realize is all the things that they're trying to chase and get and struggle for that they think is going to make their life better are all problems in their life because of the consequence of having a system that is not best. So virtually all the problems in a person's life is because the system isn't best. And if it was, all the things, like if it was already best, all the things that they want, they would already be taking them for granted.
Yeah.
Because they would have been educated effectively. Also, it wouldn't just be handed to them per se, but they would be educated effectively.
Right.
So they would know how they would be the person, they would be supported to be an effective person that would actually be able to get those things.
Yeah. The last hangout that Drake did, it was about one of the points he was covering was, are all dreams valid? And the conclusion was like, look, your dreams affect other people. Your dreams affect reality. If you're trying to do something that's your dream, it affects other people. So not all dreams are valid.
This is why people have been programmed to believe, like we talked about how like religion, it takes certain principles and then programs people with it as a control point. Mm-hmm. Another one of those principal ideas is that like you create your own reality, which is not a valid principle, but you do obviously contribute and create reality, but you don't create your own reality only. I mean, this is like kindergarten level shit. We know this.
Yeah.
But the point of my dream is something I create, and that's not the point. The point specifically is physical reality isn't real. What's real is some other thing that I don't have access to right now. Some other dimension, some spirit, some soul, some other thing. Therefore, whatever I do in the physical reality really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Therefore, if I have a dream that makes no fucking sense, that's okay. That's totally valid. It doesn't matter what it makes me do because none of this is real.
Yeah.
And it's so insane to think that, because what other thing do you think is real? Like, what does real mean to you?
Yeah.
So it's like you have to brainwash someone from a very young age to be so fucking dumb, but appear to be smart, to actually believe that what's real is something that's totally not real. Like, this is real. If you do something that has a consequence, if that's not real, what the fuck is real?
Yeah.
No, I can do whatever I want, and then I'm in some magical realm where anything goes and whatever I want happens, and it's just magic wishing. It's like that is, someone has fucked with your brain so that you will have no power, so that you can be manipulated in the real physical world, so that they can get the things they physically want and you can't.
Right.
And that's like a total slave mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I was just talking about this yesterday with Christine, about how, like, I just realized I was retarded, like, as a child, not because I was like dumb, but because
like, you're not inherently dumb.
Right. But because I was brainwashed with that way of thinking of like just going into religion with no real purpose, just literally just following rules is what I was taught.
That's what everyone does. They do the opposite of what we're doing, what we're suggesting. They're going into something without questioning it at all and just participating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're saying, come and participate here from a certain starting point.
Right.
And then change yourself according to that starting point. Not, you see what I mean?
Yeah. So like I was being taught things of value, but not given, and I know I've talked about this before, but like being taught things of value and not given the starting point or the understanding of why, and like
nobody else was doing it.
Right. And not having like a purpose. And I'll give you a great example. I remember being in like middle school, and some of the guys from the church were teaching like, don't look at porn, don't watch porn. But like their whole thing was like, so that you can be pure, and like for
I guarantee you they were all doing it.
Yeah.
It's just virtue signaling.
Right. And so like the way I was looking at it was just like, today, if you were to like today, I have a much greater understanding of like how that fucks with you completely. And like, and also the consequence of porn itself, of like what it's creating in our world and everything, and why people would even do it, and all of that. And so I have an understanding of it, rather than just like, oh, just, be pure for God. And like, it's what God would want. And like, these temptations were put here by the devil. And it's just like,
perfect example of that. We were talking about a couple of weeks ago when Mitch was talking about going to those rallies for the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
And they were saying why you shouldn't get the vaccine.
Yeah.
But it was about, because it disconnects you from God and all this. And it's like, whoa. Just say that then, if that's what you think. Why do you need all the other shit?
Yeah.
And it's like, you could just see they're just imposing their little bias on the point.
Right.
It's all that's all totally irrelevant. What's the actual real deal?
Right. And so that's what I mean by like, that retards the process, that retards the understanding. Like it literally slows it down.
Because you at a certain point, you don't think logically anymore.
Right.
Now, logically is maybe the wrong word, because even if something doesn't make any fucking sense, it can still be logical.
Okay.
Like for example, you can say, okay, I have a circuit, right? And it has like a LED on it, right? And when I push this switch, the LED comes on. Okay. I could rewire the circuit in a way where when I push the switch, the light turns off. And when I push the switch the other way, it turns on. Like you can reverse it.
Okay.
Right. So I could say, okay, when I push the switch to the right, the LED turns on. But then when I push it to the right, it turns off. Because I have it wired backwards.
Yeah.
The circuit is still logical. The circuit has a complete sound logic to it. It's just not the correct logic according to what I want it to do.
Okay.
You see the difference? But you can't say, well, that's illogical. No, it's not. The logic is, if I look at the circuit and I study it, it's got, it's wired this way. So if I push it this way, it's doing this or whatever. And that's what makes the LED come on or go off. It's just not doing what I want it to do or what I expect it to do. You see? So if someone,
in the context of, what you were just going to explain. Go ahead.
So like, for example, if I said it's totally illogical for someone to believe that every time they pray, God answers their prayer or something, right? Something that's stupid, right? Well, it's not illogical, actually, because there is a logic as to why they believe it. Go back into their programming. Gotcha. There's something they're looking for. God represents a point of hope within them because they're covering up a fear. There's a total, complete logic to why they're doing it.
Yeah.
Even though it's not common sense.
Right.
See, so that's why if you listen to Destiny and Bernard, he really uses this word common sense. You will never hear him say logic. I use that word a lot, but usually when I'm saying it, I'm meaning common sense.
Gotcha.
Like because like being atheist is logical. Being religious is logical. So atheists will try to be like, well, it's not logical to be religious. It's like, It's not logical from that perspective of being atheist.
Right.
You just have a different set of axioms.
Yeah.
Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, okay.
Yeah.
Is it logical that triangles can have more than 180 degrees as the sum of their angles? You can say, no, that's illogical. Like, well, what if it's points on a sphere? You're like, oh, but you didn't say it was a sphere. Well, yeah, but that's my axioms. It can have a different sum of it could be less than 180 degrees or whatever it is, right?
Right.
So if you have a different set of axioms, so what is the axiom of an atheist? An atheist says, there is no God.
Right.
Right. I don't want to believe in a God. Okay, therefore, Now everything is that they've concluded is potentially logical based on that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Versus a Christian, right, who believes there is a God, and everything they believe based on that has a logic to it.
It's kind of like the idea that if you get sick, there's something wrong. Like that is logical for a lot of people, right? Like if you're not feeling well when you're sick, right?
See, this is the problem with opinions. The problem with opinions is based on your opinion, you'll have a different logic. The logic will be internally consistent potentially, but the result will be different, right? So if you have, and what is an opinion? Opinion is something that you accept that's not true. That's not fact. That's not actual physical reality, how it operates, how it's designed.
Yeah.
So when we say people shouldn't have opinions, you might think, oh, that just means you want them to have your opinion. No, let's not anybody have an opinion, myself included.
Yeah.
And then people think, though, that therefore, if I accept something, it must be an opinion because everything they accept is opinions. And it's like, well, okay. Is it an opinion that I'm holding a cup? No. And now you can play a semantics game and be like, well, technically that is a mug. But if you get past the semantics of it, right? I'm holding a cup. It's not an opinion that I'm holding a cup. Well, I just feel like you're holding a cup. And someone else says, well, I feel like you're not holding a cup. No, there's no opinion that's relevant to this situation, right?
Yeah.
Now, if someone says, well, I just think that, children, when they're growing up, they just need to have some conflict, so you can't just be, you can't just, you can't teach them everything. There's some things they just need to figure out on their own, and I think, reading, that's something they just need to figure out. Like when they're ready for it, they'll start reading and see how you're going into the realm of opinion.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, but if you understood how the natural learning ability of a child works, actually, in fact, like how the body takes in information, how after a certain period of time, it starts to slow down. And then if you start learning to read when it's, quote, natural, which just means they've been exposed to it enough. That's what people don't realize. If you're not exposed to it, it's never going to be natural.
Yeah.
And then once you are exposed to it, and then you have that desire, but now you're limited. It's like if you're 35 years old and you're like, dude, I just want to be a professional race car driver. I guarantee you any professional race car driver would be like, yeah, good luck with that, buddy.
Right.
I've been doing this since I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
Like racing go-karts and shit. Like you're never going to catch up to me.
Yeah.
And so somebody who's been using Technotutor and having learned to read by the time they were 2 years old or 3 years old versus a kid who just naturally starts to read when they're 7. But look, they're reading Harry Potter. It's all working out. It's like, well, what's the vocabulary level of Harry Potter? They're never going to pick up a fucking quantum mechanics book. And you say, well, I saw this one kid who did. I'm like, okay, who was their dad? Well, he was a famous physicist. You know what I mean? Like, well, you see, but there's natural learning ability. There's exposure in the environment. You're not looking at all the points. So when someone has an opinion, they won't look at all the points. Then they'll just always try to argue in a way that reinforces that opinion.
Yeah.
So it's like, we have to get rid of opinions. And it's not about, I think the fear people have is that, well, then you need some dictator to come in and tell everybody what's the right opinion. And that's not what we're suggesting.
No.
We're saying, look at the evidence, first of all. That might stimulate you to consider what we're saying, and then actually do the research yourself.
Become educated.
Become educated. If you're not using Technotutor, you're not going to actually change your vocabulary to be able to see things as they really are. Because that vocabulary wasn't put into you in the beginning.
Yeah. I was talking with a mother who's using Technotutor with her 3-year-old. And she was telling me how her child was like basically having a challenge with all of a sudden not wanting to talk to people, not wanting to go up and make new friends, or really not that she didn't want to, that she had a fear about it. And she was basically saying how she was wanting to go make friends, but then she would just like go up to someone and just stand there and not introduce herself or anything like that, right? And then this mom, she uses Technotutor, obviously. Like we talked about it. She asked me about, because I guess she might have heard another mom talking about the parenting series on Equaf. And she asked me, hey, where do I find this? And so I sent that to her. She listened to it. And then she said, after listening to that, then she understood, like, oh, here's what's actually being created within my child. Like, here's what influenced that within my child. And then she was able to correct it within herself first, right? And then she was able to have a conversation with her child. And she said, I spoke to her like as if she was an adult. You know, she's 3 years old, but I spoke to her not really knowing, you know, what she would be able to understand or not, right? But we had an adult conversation about, you know, making friends.
You know, what do people mean when they say adult conversation? Because I like what she's saying, but what do people mean by that?
They mean like they were stern with their kid, like they, and that.
But that's obviously not what she meant.
No.
Why did she say adult conversation?
Oh, because she was using a higher vocabulary. Like,
right. So like, that's kind of like every conversation I have with my kids.
Yeah.
Is I explain everything. The only difference is when you're speaking to a child, you don't assume they know what every word you're saying means. So you can check if you're like, well, they probably don't understand. Do you understand what I mean by this word? You know, like right. If I say, well, in society, we blah, blah, blah. And then you like, well, does my child know what I mean by when I say in society? Yeah. Or if I'm saying, well, when we're in public, like, how do they know what the word what that context is? So right. I have to explain what that word means.
Yeah.
Right. What most people do with their kids is they dumb everything down.
Yeah.
Oh, did you get a boo-boo owie? Oh, you want me to kiss it, make it better? And it's like, how does that make it better?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Would you say that to an adult?
No.
They would just be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why do you talk to your children like that?
Right, right. So
the parents are like, well, but how they're going to have the vocabulary? It's like, how are they going to get it if you don't fucking use it with them?
Yeah. Oh, plus, sidebar, I've been talking with parents who like, they'll say
a salad bar.
Salad bar.
An arm bar.
I like arm bars. Those are fun.
Yeah, never mind.
But I've been talking to quite a few parents who have said like, you know, I'm just like working on the letters with my child and then noticing that they're picking up other words. They're like actually able to pick up these other words and actually go, oh, okay. Like now they're saying these words, their vocabulary is building, even though we're just working on letters, right?
Right.
But just to give you some context, because I don't know when you came back in, but I was talking to this mom who she was having a challenge.
I heard the adult conversation point.
Okay, because she was having a challenge with her daughter not making friends, like wanting to make friends, but actually not going and saying hi to people, being afraid of other kids even. And so she went on Equaf. I sent her the parenting series on Equaf.
Nice.
And she went on, listened to that, and then she was educating herself. So she understood, oh, okay, this is what's happening with my child. This is what's influencing my child. I need to correct this, and I need to correct this within myself. And so she corrected it within herself, meaning she used her techno tutor, did self-forgiveness on it, then had a conversation with her child that like from a point of understanding, right? And, you know, I was just considering this, how most parents will be like, go talk to people. I'm not going to help you. You go talk, you go do it. Just go do it. And like, not really giving their child the
Or what's the opposite of that?
The opposite being of like, oh, it's okay. You don't want to talk to anybody. You don't have to talk to nobody.
I'll go talk.
Or I'll just do it for you or something.
Or I'll do it for you. Right.
Hi.
We went through a similar thing with Max.
Yeah.
Actually, both the kids, when they were both around 2 or something, where, you know, they would want to go play with kids. And I remember the first time, well, not maybe the first time, but there was a certain point where Max, there was some kids playing, and I was like, why don't you go play with those kids? And he was like, okay. And he was like, you know, come with me. Like, and I'm like, well, why do you want to come with you? And he like didn't say. And I'm like, is it because you want me to help you, like, get them to play with you and stuff? Like, he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, look, I could do that, but it's best for you to learn how to do that yourself, because the reality is those kids want to probably play with another kid, not an adult, right? And doesn't mean they can't play with an adult, but, you know, you guys can have some fun together, and I'll just be here and watch. And I was like, so here's what you can do. I said, all you have to do is go up to those kids and say, hi, my name is Max. Do you want to play a game? And then he did that, and they were like, sure. And he was like, okay, let's play tag or whatever it was, right? And so then from then on, it's like he was able to do it. And so I think actually the first time he was like, okay, I understand. I was like, let me go with you and I'll do it with you. Right. And I would go up to the kids and I'd be like, hey, this is Max, I'm Cameron. I was like, do you guys want to play a game together? They're like, sure. And I would like make up a game and they would all play it. And then when it was like, now it was time for him to go and do it himself, I would just remind him, like, just say hi, introduce yourself, tell them your name, ask them their name. Right. And then say, would you like to play a specific game or something like that? Right. So it's that same point. And isn't it interesting? Because that to me is common sense, and it works. And then this parent figured that out for themselves by studying Destiny Equoff and then learning, like, okay, so this is how it actually operates within the child. And then she came up with the same basic point of like how to solve the problem, was to sit down and explain to them what to do. Right.
Yeah. Plus, you know, within that, when parents go and do it for the child and they're like, oh, you know, here's so-and-so, here's my little child, will you play with them? Right. What that does within the child in a very subtle way is it takes away their responsibility. It takes away their ability to do things for themselves. And so then anytime they have a problem with another child, they run back to their parent and like, so-and-so's not doing this. They don't want to play with me. Like,
and then it's like, you want the parent to go manipulate that child.
Right. And it's like, but that's something that as a child, there's not a lot of risk within like going and talking to another kid. That's something you should be developing, that communication ability then, so that when you're an adult, you know how to communicate with other people effectively. Not, oh, well, mom and dad always took care of this for me, so now I don't know what to fucking say. You know,
this is another reason why the school environment is not the best environment for young kids, because they're not going to get that one-on-one support. How is the teacher going to help that particular child in that point that they need support with, when maybe other kids don't need that support at that particular time, and they're trying to teach you mathematics and reading and all this other shit? What about all the psychological stuff? What about the consideration of where that child is at and what they need to be explained? Like, how can one adult do that? And then you got 20 other kids running around. You're like, oh wait, Johnny's about to eat some glue or something. You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna be able to do it. The parent has to take that responsibility.
Yeah. And I didn't get to tell you like the best part of it. The best part of what she was sharing with me, she said like the next day she went to like the nurse's office for whatever. And her daughter was talking to the receptionist there, and the receptionist was asking her like, how's it going or whatever, something like that. How old
her daughter again?
3 years old. Okay. And her daughter said, well, today I learned how to make friends. And she said like, it's crazy because they don't explicitly use these words in this context, but her daughter was basically saying to the receptionist, like, I was scared, but I realized I just had anxiety and I needed to walk through that. 3 years old, right? And she's telling the receptionist, and the mom's overhearing her and going like, what? And then the other cool thing was after that, she's going up to people and talking to them and telling them, you know, what she wants, or, you know, making friends with them, et cetera. And like the mom was just telling me, like, in those moments, I saw her doing that and taking that responsibility and like growing, and just like, wow, like I'm amazed by it. I felt so, I'm sure she felt very proud of not only her daughter, but of what she's doing, of like what she's had to do, because she had to expand and grow, educate herself in order to give her child that ability to expand and grow and be more. And it's such a beautiful process with what we're doing with Technically Tutor specifically, of like, we are not just saying you can educate your child by teaching them numbers and letters. We're saying we're going to grow alongside one another, not just as parents and children, but as husband and wife, as partners, as business partners, as friends, as a community. We are all growing alongside one another by taking on the responsibility for ourselves and changing ourselves. And then it's like, oh, wow. And that's part of the reason why when we get together, it's so amazing. It's so like we gel so nicely, because it's like, we have a common purpose, but we're actually doing it. We're actually doing it and living it. And it's like that breath that we take in when we're together. It's like, it's a living breath. It's like, you know, nobody's hiding behind anything, because we're growing, and we're like, we're part of, yeah, it is a conspiracy, right? But we're part of creating another, like when you said mastermind, it's like creating another entity, so to speak, of like, not an entity. Let me clarify that. Like,
I like conspiracy better.
I like conspiracy, but it's like we're creating a system.
It's an environment.
It is an environment there. Yeah.
It's just an environment. Like, you go into an environment and you feel different. It's a resonance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You can
see the whole thing about the mastermind. And I know why you said that word, but like being another entity, the reason people want that is because they still are looking for something to be more powerful than them.
Like some God.
And like, just realize there's power in a group. Why?
Yes.
Because you have multiple individuals summing it's like when you have one person versus two people, it's a totally different environment.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And when you have 50 people all together in a common purpose, it's a totally different environment.
Yeah.
And there's power in that. Like, what should we share about the actual like fun stuff that we did?
Oh, okay. Hang on. Just to hit on that point just a little bit more. It's like when you have a tone, and like it's coming from like one bell or tuning fork or whatever, like there's one tone there. But then when you add another tuning fork and you add more and more, like it changes the sound of that. It's like a sound field, right? Yeah. And like you can feel that. Like that's what I see is present within having more and more of us. It's like we are.
But just look at the practical reality of it.
Yeah.
Just bring it down to the practical reality. If Jess and Mitch had a wedding and it was just them standing up there.
Yeah.
It's physically different than if there's 50, 100, however many, 200 people in the audience watching, participating. Do you see what I mean? There's a physical thing there. It's like if you have a cup full of coffee versus only a drop. It's different. It's physically different. You have more of something. Yeah. Right?
That's true.
So I was just saying, don't take it necessarily to a mystical. People try to like turn it into it's this extra thing going on. It's like, it's just, you have 50 people. You're united in purpose. You can do more. It's like, you can't play a basketball game with only one person. I mean, you can, it's just not the same. Now, can you play with just 5 people? Yes. Can you play it with, how many people are on a basketball team? 5 total?
5 on the court.
On each team, right? So if you have 10 people, you can have a whole game. But if you have 10 people and you have a crowd of 10,000 people, it's a whole nother dynamic. It's just a different number of people, right?
Yeah.
Now, what if you had 10,000 people and it was a basketball game, an NBA professional game, and all 10,000 people in the stadium, the guys are playing basketball, all 10,000 people are not even paying attention to the game. They're just all sitting on their phone. like on Facebook, not even paying attention at all, no matter what happens. They're just like,
Or what if you had 10,000 people, but none of them are actually out at the game? It's just screens that you're watching, like as you play the game, and everyone else is at home and they're like watching them play basketball, but nobody actually gets to be by the court.
right, imagine you're actually the basketball player on the court and it's all just fake people in the crowd. Like it's a different physical thing.
That's what
right?
it's like. That's what it's been this entire last year.
Right.
Like, it's fucking ridiculous.
What should we talk about in terms? Because us maybe 20 minutes or so. What do you guys want to talk about in terms of sharing the?
Well, when you're in an environment with a bunch of high level, clear people, the physical effect it has on your body. So many people got sick after.
Oh yeah.
What do you think I was talking?
And I was
about?
like, yeah.
I was like, I don't know. I was like, where are you going with that?
Did you also have a Woody?
Well,
Remember that? Hold on. Should we talk about the games and stuff, or should that be like a secret thing for whenever you come?
Well, if you want to see Mitchell do the worm, or Mayor spank himself in the corner of the room, or Cameron go red in his face and cry of laughter.
It's cool because we're just playing games, we're having fun, and then we're having conversations about, okay, what is our next step? What is your next step? What is that you need to focus on? Where are you limiting yourself? Maybe it's in a group context, like where are we as humanity? What is the context of what's going on in the world? Like we're having real conversations, and then we're just playing and having fun also. It's like, because we have the same common purpose for real and actually applying ourselves, we're able to do all those other things easily and to flow back and forth. So somebody can be like, hey, do y'all want to play a game? And 10 people, 50 people, whatever. We're like, yeah, let's do it.
It's actually like there's actually a specific power to that. Like, it's like, you have the gin event, right? And then you learn, and then you have the big dance, right? Where it's like, kind of like you just kind of let go. It's cool because, like, for example, in when we were in Houston in November, right? There were times where we'd be sitting down talking for hours, right? And we start reading a book and just talk. And it's just like everyone's having these like crazy cognitions. And then we're just like eat, play. And it's like you get this chance to integrate everything. It's like when I don't know if you ever experienced this, but when you're trying to learn something on the piano, for example, I'm using piano just to relate to, I don't know, Cam, you've probably been through this. Or if you're trying to learn any kind of musical instrument and you kind of get stuck at a certain point, then you just step away for 5-10 minutes and come back to it.
And then suddenly you can do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like your brain needs that space to integrate the point.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, your body.
And so we do that very well, just like in a quote natural way.
Natural, yeah.
Because we're not trying to force it. We're not trying to force it. Like, and there was no leader.
Yeah.
Right. There's no leader going, here's what we are going to do next, guys. Come and participate. It's just like everybody hanging out, eating, joking around. And then somebody will be like,
we will play a game.
Yeah, somebody will be like, anybody want to play a game? And like, we'll start playing or whatever. And it's like,
and somebody will be like, well, but I'm hungry. Like, okay, let's order food. And
fine.
Like,
yeah, whatever. But you'll have like 20 people sitting around in a circle playing like what you would normally consider party games with no drinking, no drugs, nothing like that. And I remember like, I'll just give a little bit of context.
Swiss chocolate. Yeah.
I'll give a little bit of context. And that way, anybody who like comes to an event, they already filled in on what to do. But we have this game we play. And I think Alan was the one who taught us about it initially in Orlando. And it's called Psychologist, although now we call it Psychosis, I guess. But basically, the idea of it is you have a whole bunch of people in a room, like kind of sitting in a circle. And then you have one person who's in the center of that, and they're the psychologist. And without discussing it with them, the group agrees on what would be a pattern that they all will agree upon, that the psychologist is trying to figure out, what is this pattern that you have? What is the problem? What's your diagnosis? And it doesn't have to be a literal medical thing. It can be anything silly. It can be like, we all have one leg that's shorter than the other leg, right? Something like that. But then obviously you're not going to explicitly, I know, sorry, Jess. We're not going to explicitly say to the psychologist, that's what it is. They have to figure it out through questioning and asking. They have no clue what it has to, it could be psychological, it could be abstract. It could be like, we all are from outer space. Like it can be anything. But the psychologist can ask one person at a time a question, and they can ask a bunch of questions, or they can go to another person. They can randomly ask people, but they have to speak to a specific person and get an answer from that person. And you just can't lie to them. You can't deliberately mislead them. So if they ask you, do you have a problem with your legs? You couldn't be like, no, I don't. You could try to be like vague about it, but you can't deliberately mislead them, right? you might be like, you could say that, you could say something like that, for example. You just can't mislead them. And there's more to the game, but the basic concept is they're trying to figure out what the thing that everyone agreed upon while they were not in the room. And it can be very frustrating because once you get to know everybody, it's like you kind of know everybody a little bit and kind of what their personality is, how they think about things. And then you can create patterns that everyone agrees to that will be easy or hard for that particular person to get, depending on like how well you know the person, right? So we were doing that for hours at a time. And the thing that really stuck out to me about it, I just want to give context for what it was, but the thing that stuck out to me about it was there will be points where the person is like not even on track at all. And it'll be like 20, 30, 40 minutes of them asking and like trying to figure it out. They can't figure it out, and but the dynamic we have in our group, everyone's just kind of like sitting there, like laughing, joking, having fun, and continuing to play the game. Even though you're just sitting there, maybe the person's not even ever talking to you and you're just waiting for them to get it, but you're like observing everything. It's like, there's like a dynamic that you're plugging into, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? And you could be sitting there for like an hour, it's like no different than watching a TV show in a lot of ways, right? You're like plugged into that TV show, you're just watching it. And when you're in that group, it's like you could just be there. And I remember there was one point, I feel like it was Maylat or somebody else, and they were like, maybe, I don't know if it was Maylat or somebody, but they were like, oh, trying to figure it out. And I think she thought that she had been doing it for longer than she had, but she was like, and maybe it was for a while, and she was like, oh, you guys are probably getting bored, like with me trying to figure it out. And we were all like, no. And it's just a really cool point, because you look around, everyone's just kind of like sitting there, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no like, come on, like, we got to get this, it's just like, we're all just here and we're just playing a game as a way to interact with each other. But right after this, we could be sitting around the fire talking about things in the system, or like Seth was talking about conspiracy theories. Like, we were just chatting about stuff and like, how does that apply to what we're doing and so forth, right? Mm-hmm. So that aspect of it was really cool for me to see, because I've never been, obviously in Orlando we had that, and to a certain degree we've had that before, like when we go to gym events, right? Like when we're all sitting around the pool. And I've always said my favorite part about the events, I've always said my favorite part about the groups is just sitting around the pool or sitting around chit-chatting, talking.
Yeah.
But now it's the size of the group, but it's also like, if you just go to a gym event, you can have a good time because there's a certain level of common purpose, in the sense of everybody studying the gym material and trying to figure out how to create more things in their life. But there's still that point of like, yeah, but not everyone's actually united in any real sense. They're just all united in the sense that they want more out of life. But with Self-Perfected, it's like we take it to a whole nother level, like the ultimate level of, yes, you want more out of life, but what are you willing to do about it? Are you going to realize that you have to change the system in this world? And that's the only way you're ever going to get anything that you want for real, in any way that you're actually satisfied. And even if there's some things you're not going to get, which is more important, standing up and changing the system so it's best for everybody, or just trying to pursue the thing that you want, which is probably, you can't get it right now because the consequences, we live in a money system that's totally fucked. And unless you're willing to really abuse people, it's like you have two choices. You can either really just become ruthless and abuse people, and that's how you make a lot of money in this world, or you can be a part of Self-Perfected, and you can stand up and you can build a business and make money in a way that actually supports people and changes the system and puts all those points in place. And I was talking to somebody last night, I think I was talking to John last night, and I was explaining, we were talking about, because he did his first clubhouse as soon as he got back from that Mitch and Jess's,
which was
right?
Fucking awesome. And Zoe was like,
dude, he said like they were like hit the ground, and she was like, let's make a video.
Yeah.
And then they were like doing the clubhouse, and it's like everything's clicked, and she was there with him, so she got support and everything too. So now they're more united. It's really cool watching that. But he was like talking about building his business more, and I was like, what's the only thing you really need to focus on at this point? And he realized it was just build his clubhouse, because that environment is where everything comes together. So I mean, that's where you support people. That's where everything comes together. That's where you get all those 5 points on that star, where the purpose is the community, education, building a family, and then developing a business, and all the responsibility that comes with actual real freedom. And what is freedom now? At the end of the day, you've said it before, both of you really well. And we were talking about this, I think on a meeting or something, like, what's the only thing you can do in this world that's not pre-programmed? Is change the system. Like, if you want to prove that you have free will, if you want to prove you have actual choice and actual freedom, stand up and change the system. Because the only reason you wouldn't is because you're just trying to go along with the program as it is. It's the only way to prove to yourself, not that you need to prove anything. I'm not saying you need to do it to prove to yourself, but if you were interested in proving to yourself, this would be the only way to prove to yourself, because everything else, whether you're poor or rich, in the system is just following a program. So if you're like not satisfied with the program that you have and the situation you're in, you have to change that. And changing the system is going to be the platform through which you find all the points in yourself that you need to change to become your full expression.
Exactly. And so one of the ways you do that, just like a fun point, a cool education point that I didn't understand for a long time, your body has to go through physical change. And I think you could probably hear it in Cameron's voice. He's like a little bit stuffy. Sounds like a little bit nasally.
It's the hormones.
Because you're pregnant.
I'm transitioning.
Oh, that's important. It was so funny because the point when I got really certain on what sickness is to your body was a year ago in November when we were at your house in Houston, Cameron. And we were all together and we were really supporting each other to get to the next level. And before I went to that event, I was like, if the theory is true, I've heard Avery say, your body's getting an upgrade. Every time we're sick for years, your body's getting an upgrade. I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? But I started understanding it more and more. Anytime I would push through some massive point, I would get sick, and then my income would go up. You know what I mean? Like my relationships would increase, things would get better, because your body has to shed old information, old programs, old patterns that are physically stored inside of you as information. So that's what all that mucus is, that the eye boogers, all that stuff, the sweats, whatever it is. And so perfectly in divine timing, perfectly coming to the end of that November event last year at the Copes, I started getting sick. I wake up in the morning because Max is waking me up and he's a little bit sick. And I go out and Cameron's like, he's a little bit sick. And then Kian's a little bit sick. Mary's a little bit sick. Everyone starts getting a little bit sick. And then it just, as the last couple of days went through, we all went home and we're like, hey, are you sick? Like, are you sick? Like, yeah, I'm sick. I'm definitely, right. Nose is running, all that stuff. And I was like, oh, this is what it is. And that next month was like one of my best months in business. Right. And that's when me and Maylat jumped a lot of steps in our relationship. So which was really cool. And it's funny because that was the systematic thing that happened at this event, except it was just with more people. And there must have been 15, 20 people, like 10, 15 people who got sick. Like I was talking to Owen afterwards. I was like, hey man, he's traveling a little bit. I'm like, hey, how are your travels going? He's like, yeah, as if I'm actually bedridden a little bit, like the last 2 days, just really sick, And it's really cool because I was explaining this point to him of like, hey, I know that you might have, because we're all programmed with this kind of emotional resistance to sickness. Like we have this resistance of like being sick is bad, right? And if you're sick, then it's like, oh, I'm sick. Like my body hurt. We have all these associations with being sick, right? And we also have that point of playing it up so that you can skip school and all this stuff and not have to do shit you don't want to do. But really, it's a great support for your body. In fact, it's the only way that you can get to the next level. If you avoid being sick, you're not deleting the old files on your computer so that you can make room for the new. And that's what I saw a bunch of us go through. And it's not to say that if you don't get sick, that means you didn't change at all. That's not what it means. It's just everyone's
your body might have processed it just fine without any physical symptoms. It's fine.
Exactly. Right.
But the real point is like people are so afraid of getting sick. And I used to be afraid of getting sick when I was a kid. Like
Mhm.
when I was younger anyways. Like I would be afraid of
Yeah.
it, but it's not a bad thing. It's like you said, a point of your body processing something. Obviously, the more you are supported with effective diet, with less toxin load in your body, it's going to be easier for your body to process it. So the more, and even with your immune system and everything, like all of that stuff is supposed to work together to support yourself. If you have deficiencies in those areas, it's going to maybe be too much for you. Now, the fear is that, well, we need to protect everybody because some people are very vulnerable and all that stuff. But then maybe there are some people who are very vulnerable to it. But why don't we create a system where it's supportive for them to be able to get the support they need? Do you know what I mean? Instead of all the decisions about that being based on making money and profit, and then using it to create more fear to where you have people who have no problem processing an illness or something. Now what you're doing is depriving them from ever getting that physical contact with another person.
Yep.
It's like literally, it's like if there was a new upgrade available for your iPhone, and then I was like, oh, there's a new computer virus out, guys. Don't connect your phone to the internet. Just don't connect it. You're never going to get that upgrade.
Exactly, 100%.
You're when you do the upgrade, the internal programming of your phone has to change. So think of it as the DNA, the program in the phone. You need to take certain parts out, put new parts in, and so forth. And viruses help you with that process.
Mhm.
But if you don't have an effective vocabulary about what a virus is, and it's less of a particle transmission, although there's part of that, it's more of a resonance, a vibrational transmission, if you want to think of it like that. Like viruses don't operate on the level of particles like people think. They operate at they're much more sophisticated. So you can be sick just from being around somebody, even though they're not coughing and hacking on you. So all the stuff that's being done to try to prevent the virus doesn't work, as you can see. That's why like, well, cases seem to keep going up, even though the virus masks don't work. So they don't work. It's like, it's because you know what the fuck a virus is. It's true. Like science is so far in the dark ages. It's not even funny.
The contagion myth goes to lengths to talk about the studies where, they had people who were infected with the virus. I think it was during the Spanish flu or whatever, who would cough into the mouths of other people and like blow their nose into Kleenex, and other people put in their, like, all this crazy stuff of like, if viruses are transmitted through mucus and droplets and all that stuff, that person is 100% getting the virus and they didn't get it. Right. And so it was really cool processing those points, because for those of you, I know this is a fact for Windows. If you have Windows 10, if you go to Windows 10 and you go into certain settings and you look at your peer-to-peer updates, one of the things that Windows can do is, it's not special, but it's just like, if it's on a network, or if it's around computers that have a certain update that your computer doesn't have, if you have this setting activated, peer-to-peer downloads or something like that, it will download that update from that computer rather than from the centralized cloud. And why I'm bringing this up is because if you're in an environment with a lot of people who are pushing themselves to the next level, when somebody's body, in other words, when somebody pushes themselves to the next level, if they're getting what they need to move forward, their body is processing that. And your body, even though you're not receiving that direct input with whatever their stimulus they're using to get to the next level, maybe it's just a powerful conversation or whatever it is, or seeing something happen.
Well, hold on. Think about this. If the average person went into the room with Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, would they get along?
No.
If you were to spend all day with Jeff Bezos,
he'd be like, why are you around me, loser?
but doesn't he spend all day with some people?
Yeah.
Why are those people able to be all day with him?
Because they have similar programming.
Right. That's why he hired them.
Yeah.
They're at the same level, basically, right? So when you're around another person, it's not about the specific realization they're having. It's about them moving into another point of responsibility, another layer in the grid line, whatever you want to call it, and they're supporting you to do that as well. And if you are of the same purpose, of the same starting point, and you're like, yeah, I want to go there too, it's your body's going to support you to remove what you need to remove and to have that upgrade. And I was just thinking about this too, like, why is the vaccine so pushed? I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but in one sense, if the virus is supporting you to do that upgrading process, what would the vaccine be preventing you from doing?
Upgrading.
Do you see? That's pretty fucked. Just because of fear. And what is the fear really of?
Dying.
And change, isn't it?
Hmm.
It's not really fear of dying, if you think about it, it's fear of living. Because living is more responsibility. It's more expression. Like people are already dying right now.
Yeah.
Like every moment they're breathing, they're actually in the process of dying because they're not living. So trying to prevent that upgrade is like, I don't want to stand up and take responsibility. So you make that decision within yourself, within who you are. Like not getting the virus isn't going to prevent you from dying. Think about it. How many people have gotten the vaccine? I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm just saying we all know this is happening, getting the vaccines and still getting sick and still dying.
Right.
It's happening across the board. And they're like, see, the vaccine doesn't work. I'm like, yeah, it's not, it's like the person doesn't want to be here. Fundamentally, they don't want to participate in actually standing up.
Damn. Yeah.
That seems kind of ruthless, but like,
No. It's like, it's actually the point of what we're living out is a set of words. And if your set of words say, fuck this, I don't want to be here, it's like that will be expressed in reality kind of thing. But kind of like what you said, you're like,
but hold on, think about this. Not what I said might sound ruthless, but if I'm saying let's create a world that's best for all, and any part of you is like, no, we can't do that. But like, how are you any different than the fucking virus? Going around just randomly, it's just killing people. How are you any different? Because you know, if you've talked to us that you are participating in a system and therefore supporting a system that requires poverty, that creates abuse, that creates war by design. And you're saying, I'm not going to lift a finger to do anything to change it. Not even just use my technometer and fucking change myself at a basic level. I refuse. And then if somebody wants to say, well, that sounds really ruthless, Cameron, like you saying just people deserve to die. I'm not saying anything about people deserving. I'm saying you're making a choice within yourself. Are you going to be a part of the change or not? It's not me doing anything to stop you or do anything to you. It's you deciding where you stand. Like we're here to change the system. That's the only reason to be here. It's not about you're here to experience life to the fullest. Like you can't. The system, the environment is not in place. And what we're showing y'all is when you create an environment with people based on principle, it's like it's an amazing environment. And we can't even show people that. The only way we're gonna be able to show people is by them taking responsibility and creating it themselves in their local environments or coming to the events that we're putting on. It's the only way they'll be able to experience it. Just like people got a taste of it when they were at Jess and Mitch's wedding, who weren't already a part of the group. And I was getting feedback just like you guys were. Like we went and visited some of Jess and Mitch's like local sort of friends that they're developing a network with the day before we left. And they were saying like, everybody Jess and Mitch brings around is like really genuine people. Like I can see there's no hidden agenda, but you're very open about what you're doing and so forth. And it's just, he's like, this one guy was like, I can size people up very quickly. And like, all of you are very genuine in what you're doing. And I could see they were previously kind of on the fence about technotutor because they probably hadn't met a lot of people. And then all you hear is what's online or someone else's opinion. And then you meet us in person. You're like, wow, okay, you're actually genuine and serious about what you're doing. It's really cool.
Isn't it usually the opposite? You read all the cool stuff online and you meet the person in person.
Right. That's like, we're the anti-hype. You know what I mean? We're not trying to hype it up.
Negative press.
We're just telling you the real stuff. And then when you meet us in person, you're like, oh, wow, this is like actually really cool.
Cool. Like, subscribe, slap it up. And we got.
And share this with other people. I think that's critical. Share it directly. Like tell them what you got out of it, like why you listen to this. Share it with other people. That's what this is all about, is like the 1+1, right? We want to create this community for everyone.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good point. Like, don't just share it on your timeline. You can do that, but like literally go share it with, like, send it to them in a message or something. Like, have them listen to it. Or a different episode that you found supportive.
There was like 180 people, 140 to 180 people at that wedding. And Ken was making this point to somebody. He's like, look at this. He was like, take it all this in. Look at all these people that Jess and Mitch brought together because of their 1+1. Because they took the time to build relationships. If you were to get married right now, how many people would come to your wedding? That, whatever that number is, it should be double, it should be triple, it should be 5x, because let that representation be those people want to support you, right? So
not only that, how many people would come, and then you would be really happy with them staying at your house all day for like the next 5 days, not even doing a honeymoon or anything, and just hanging out.
Yeah,
think about that.
That's a big point. All right. So the way you create that community is by doing the 1+1. Family, education, community, purpose, freedom.
We out.
Bye. It's the 5 points that we say bye.
See ya.